There you are, Sharon.
That's one too. And just completely unmute your space bar, does it?
We are waiting for one more arrival, and we will begin shortly. Thank you for holding. Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope you all can hear me just fine. And we're still waiting for one more member, but we can get the meeting necessities out of the way so we can start the real meat of the event. So calling the meeting to order of the Legislative Advocacy and Committee Relations Committee. And I would like a motion to approve the agenda.
So move that we approve our agenda for the Legislative Advocacy Committee.
Co-seconds.
All right, all those in favor, you too? All right. And we do have the issue of electronic participation by a school board member for policy BDD. I recommend that the school board approve the electronic participation of school board member Dr. Atul Gupta due to disability medical condition as outlined in policy BDD. Do I have a motion? Mr. Trost? Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, then we will move on to our presentation and I will share my screen. Just one second. And is that showing this main slide? Great. So welcome the members of the Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations Committee, our board members, myself, Kim Sinha, Mr. Gary Harvey, Mr. Randall Trost, and representing the LCS administration on the committee are Superintendent Edwards and Ms. Ethel Reeves of the Communication and Community Relations Department. School board members are appointed by district from City Council. We have Ms. Susan Morrison, Dr. Robert Brennan, Mr. Randy Trost from District 1, Sharon Carter, myself, and Mr. Harvey from District 2, Michael Nilles, James Coleman, Chair of the Board, and Atul Gupta from District 3. Members of the LCS administration in attendance today are Superintendent Edwards, members of her top leadership team, and several principals from the various schools, and school resource officer, Mr. Mike Smith. I just have a few opening comments to set the stage, and then we'll get on with our presentations. As you know, parents have been understandably frustrated and worried about the coronavirus-related impacts on their children's education. These concerns have metastasized into culture war battles that are disrupting school board meetings across the country. Although there have been numerous accounts of menacing behavior towards school board members around the country, the Lynchburg City School Board has largely been spared, with the exception of a disruptive stunt or two and frequent attention-seeking behavior by select individuals. Hearing an echo.
Yours coming through both ways.
I apologize.
Sorry.
Through a disruptive stunt or two, the frequent attention-seeking behavior by select individuals, the public has acted with civility toward this board. And we are grateful. We are grateful for that, and it speaks well for our community. The antics and stunts that have been brought to our chamber would never be labeled domestic terrorism, and certainly not by the 9 of us. Likewise, the Virginia School Boards Association disagrees with the National School Board Association's letter to President Biden. A frequent refrain of unhappy parents is that this board is not accountable, that we do not listen, But we do listen and we do hear. In most of these instances, our hands have been tied and we cannot do what parents would like us to do. For example, through the 2020-21 school year, there were parents who begged and pleaded, at times becoming quite shrill, that LCS return to 5 days a week of in-classroom learning. It didn't matter that we were bound by rules, sometimes contradictory, set forth by the governor, Virginia Department of Education, Virginia Department of Health, the CDC, and so on. Because these constraints made it impossible to do what some families demanded we do, we were accused of not listening, of not caring, or even ignoring what the pandemic was doing to our children, the learning loss, performance gaps, and the social, emotional toll on students, or the problems experienced by parents and families. We are keenly aware of the problems, and we are doing the best we are able with the resources we've been given to rectify these problems. The biggest challenges we face today are not unique to Lynchburg. The pandemic created a surge in online commerce, sweeping up all available CDL operators to deliver packages, leaving few to supply our school transportation needs. Teachers were in short supply before the pandemic, and that shortage has worsened. And this includes the availability of substitute teachers. And now supply chain backlogs are affecting school nutrition programs. These are just a few of the things we face. And now for an update on COVID mitigation factors and how it's affecting the schools, I turn it over to Superintendent Edwards.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the opportunity to just take a little time and talk about our children. And yes, while we are in the middle of a public health crisis, we have some educational concerns that we are also dealing with right now. Our current reality across our country is that we have seen learning loss for our students. Our statewide SOL scores show that pass rates were about 69% for reading, 54% for math, and 59% for science. Our LCS scores show similar, as we do see the same across the Commonwealth. So one of the first things we have to do is just acknowledge our current reality. Our students need us now to address some of the academic learning loss that has occurred. But there's other loss, and I'll get to that in a second. So let's talk about remediation and recovery. And while we can spend a lot of time talking about what the pandemic did to us, our real message today is, what are we doing about it? So our students, we first did a diagnostic assessment to see where they are. And while that was a little bit sobering and the information we saw showed trends that our students did suffer in reading and in math, but we're ready. We're doing something about it. Over the past couple months, we've put in a comprehensive assessment system that allows us to see student growth. And that's exactly where we want to be right now, seeing our students make progress and make growth. We also have a new literacy plan and a literacy program, which is working. We are seeing our students get back to where they were and beyond that. We also have put in things like foundations and Orton Gillingham and Wilson. We are using the best practice strategies to work with our kids because they absolutely deserve it. And as I say that, I must give a huge thank you to every teacher, every staff member, every support staff member, every bus driver, custodian, nurse, assistant, school nutrition worker, and everyone in Lynchburg City Schools, because it is taking a community effort to really get our students back. But in addition to academic learning loss, we are also seeing some issues with behaviors, with mental health, and quite frankly, one that we may not have predicted, stamina. Last year, although many schools were completely remote, Lynchburg City Schools was still open for 2 days a week. And while that was important in getting our kids in-person instruction, it is very different now that we are open for 5 days a week. So our children were in school 2 days a week, 6 hours a day. And now they're in school 5 days a week for 7 hours a day. And what we're seeing is we have to rebuild their stamina for school. We have to rebuild their resiliency for school. And that is something that our teachers are facing while they're also addressing academic learning loss. And during the pandemic, many of our families had many experiences that we are now seeing in schools. We are seeing some of the trauma that some of our students have experienced during this pandemic. And again, in addition to being responsible for making sure our children are caught up in reading and math and science, our staff is working diligently to address social, emotional, mental health, and mental wellness needs of our kids. We are a full service agency taking care of children and managing it very well as we move forward to looking at student growth. So what are we in need of? We need your support. The teaching and learning platform is different now. Some of the things that we saw that worked last year when we were in a hybrid mode were small class sizes where teachers could really build relationships with their students and families and get to know their kids and really hone in on our mission, every child by name, by need, to graduation and beyond. But we've put class sizes back to where they were pre-pandemic. Teachers have also, last year, they had a day that they could use to prep, to get ready, to spend quality time with students and families. And we are now vaulted back to the old schedules that we had pre-pandemic. So we are trying to use old methods to address the current problem, and we are struggling in doing that. So what do we need? We need more supports in school. We need more mental health and clinicians to take the load off the teaching force so that kids can get their needs met. We need additional teachers and substitutes and staff members. If we can make a dent in making the class sizes smaller so that teachers can really dig deep and work with their students, it would assist us tremendously. We need to have a high quality staff. And that only works when you look at the working conditions for our educators. We need higher salaries for our staff. We need better working conditions for our staff. So as we look forward to developing next year's school budgets and budgets across the Commonwealth, let's keep this challenge right in front of us. Let's remember what we need to do for our students. Let's make Virginia the state where we are the educator of the employer of choice when it comes to education. We need high quality staff in front of our kids. Our kids absolutely deserve it. So some of the things that we're going to ask for from the General Assembly and from our legislators is to take a look at our funding formulas, to take a look at our support cap, to take a look at what's funded in SOQ and help us rebuild better and build a better system that can support our kids. This pandemic has not gone away like we thought it would. The Delta variant threw us a curveball, but we're always up and ready for the challenge. And now we need you and your support to continue giving our kids the excellent service that they absolutely deserve so that we can help them soar to their potential and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. And now I should say that often the high point of our school board meetings is presentations by our student representative. So we have a brief presentation from one of them now.
All right, good morning, everyone. When asked to speak, I was told that I needed to serve as the bridge between the ACG student body and administration and give just a brief presentation on what they think that we need to see in the schools right now. So when I reached out, the first thing that came to mind was lunch systems. They have changed due to the COVID-19 protocol, and that is completely understood. We understand that there was a pandemic, so we do need to have changes in place. Everything will not be normal. However, the lunch system does not allow for the amount of socialization that we were used to and the amount of socialization that we need. We come in with our class, we sit with our class, and we leave with our class. There's no room to mix and mingle between other classes, other class levels, or grades. And then moving on into the next topic, this one is not unique to ECG. This is just a topic that's nationwide, it's going all around, and that's critical race theory. When I reached out to the student body, we came to the conclusion that there's just too much emphasis being put on the term critical race theory. The uproar should not be whether or not this is intentionally embedded in our curriculum, rather than just teaching American history. We just want to learn what happened in America. If one is enrolled in an American history course, true American history is what needs to be taught. And American history is not pretty. And this is where many educators will stray away from the topic. However, if we don't take the time to learn and understand and see where we went left in our past, we're not going to be able to move forward. And so I did include a quote by George Santayana, and he says, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." And I think that that just sums that up perfectly. And then lastly, bringing it full circle right back to ECG is just school maintenance. A lot of our students are realizing that we're seeing new TVs being put in place to do away with the older smartboard technology, which is amazing. We love enhanced technology. That's definitely a step in the right direction. However, there are hallways that are struggling with AC. The bathrooms are not guaranteed to be up to par every day. So we do think that that is an amazing stride, the new TVs, the new technology. However, we do think that there should be a little priority in there where just basic things are fixed and suitable for us. And so that does conclude my presentation. I thank you all so much for this opportunity. I thank you all for your time and your patience, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. And now we'll get on with our legislative priorities.
Good morning. I'm going to be discussing early childhood education within LCS. LCS supports stable funding to support publicly subsidized early pre-K childhood childcare and public education for at-risk individuals ages 3 to 4 years. It is imperative that such programs, once established, be maintained to provide a reliable source for providing disadvantaged students and their families additional support for future education success. As we talk about the economics of early childhood care, many families require multiple earning incomes to make ends meet, and which this creates a need for childcare within the family structure. Parents cannot work unless they have childcare. For every working Lynchburg parent, 9 of them, there is only one available childcare spot for infants and toddlers within our city. Working parents are essential to Lynchburg's labor force and maintaining a healthy economy and our tax base. Nationally, it is estimated that a lack of affordable childcare costs in the U.S. will cost us approximately $57 billion annually in lost production. When we address a child's brain development, develops more during the first 5 years than any other time in their life. Early brain development has a lasting impact on a child's ability to learn and succeed in school and in life. The quality of a child's experience in the first few years of life positively or negatively help to shape how their brain develops. It reduces the need for long-term special and behavioral needs services, i.e. saving higher cost services throughout a child's education within the system. A child's social development also depends on early childhood education. Early childhood education provides opportunities and experiences that impact the development of a child's cognitive, social, emotional, physical, and language development. Early childhood education helps to reduce behavioral and social emotional problems later in school and improves a child's social skills in relating to teachers and other students. Several studies have suggested that a child denied an early childhood education has a 70% greater probability of being arrested for a violent crime later on in life. So funding. These are just a few examples of the current funding sources. I would like to bring your attention to the number one source. And then I ask you to ask yourselves, how do parents who are economically challenged pay for early childhood education tuition without any outside assistance? So finally, what can our legislators do? We can pass legislation or policies that encourage and support early childhood education programs in the Lynchburg community. We can provide additional funding for programs such as Head Start, and we can provide additional assistance to low-income families to encourage early childhood education.
So good morning, guys. Apologize I'm late. I just wondered, guys, if y'all wanted to have questions while we go, or do you want me to just wait till when we're done?
Senator Newman, we will have time for questions and discussions at the end of the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. The three associations, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and the Children's Hospital Association, which together represents approximately or over 77,000 physicians in more than 200 hospitals. They have declared the state of children's mental health a national emergency. Dr. Beer, the president of the American Academy of Pediatricians, stated, and I quote, "Children's mental health must be treated like any other emergency." And Dr. Carlson, president of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatrists, stated, "We cannot sit idly by. This is a national emergency, and the time for swift and deliberate action is now." And the declaration is advocating for policymakers at every level of government, that they will step up and also make sure that all families have access to mental health services, to improve or to increase telemedicine access, support for school-based mental health services, as well as increased efforts to decrease suicide risk. Children have experienced difficult times in the year 2020 and 2021. We had the pandemic, disruption of education, a divisive election, the murder of George Floyd, and moreover, due to COVID loss, children experienced at least 140,000 deaths of their caregivers, primary and or secondary. All these events are taking and have taken a toll on children's mental health. Children's ages 5 to 11 have seen the emergency department has seen an increase of 24% of hospital visits and 31% in ages 12 to 17. And this year alone, at least 50% of the girls who presented to the emergency room presented with suicide suspected injuries. In the US, the emergency departments are seeing not only high school and middle school students, but an increase in elementary school students that are presenting for significant mental health issues, such as depression, anxiety, suicide ideation, and in need of mental health hospitalizations. And if you don't believe this, just if you happen, unfortunately, to be in an emergency department, I was a couple of weeks ago, and just saw a significant presence of the police force. And I was trying to figure out what is going on. And then I saw where they weren't together, but they were sitting on the outside of bays. And as you walk through, you will see that some of these people or children there were elementary kids waiting or needing an ECO or emergency custody order or a temporary detention order. And thanks to the proactive mindset of our board and our superintendent, last year we made sure that we budgeted for this increased needs in mental health services with social workers, psychologists, behavioral support system, and also just an increased emphasis on social and emotional learning. Thank you.
Good morning. Sorry for, I was very excited when I was given the chance to talk about student success. And I was so excited that I reached out to the principals and to staff to give me information about how successful we were last year operating under the pandemic. However, I then went back and read our legislative positions, and they are much more specific. And I'm going to talk about student success in our Department of Student Services. COVID-19 pandemic has certainly accelerated the need for additional support for our students and families. For not only have we suffered an academic learning loss, but a social and emotional learning loss as well. According to Director for Student Services, Mrs. Brown, Director Brown, our needs are critical. We need trained behavioral coaches for each of our 2 high schools to assist with preventing and addressing misbehaviors. These individuals are trained to intervene, redirect, de-escalate behaviors that could lead to suspensions or expulsions. We need registered behavioral technicians for general education population with oppositional defiant disorders or other defiant disorders, such as mood or anxiety disorders, conduct disorders, ADD or ADHD. We need social workers at each of our secondary schools and additional ones at several elementary schools. Social workers assess individual homeschool and community factors that may affect a student's ability to learn. They provide consultation with school staff regarding social and emotional needs of our students. They collaborate with community agencies to find appropriate resources for students and family. Our social workers also maintain an LCS community resource guide that includes detailed information for our LCS student services on our website. We need licensed clinicians on site for every school level for social emotional learning to address anxiety, depression, and trauma due to COVID or sexual assault. In addition to identifying these needs in our students, Lynchburg City needs more local beds in our community for students in crisis. Remember, LCS provides for students in every possible way during the 7 hours a day that they are under our care and supervision. But we are working with our community partners to make it work in the other 17 hours of the day. This comes with a price tag. The second area that I want to address is the need for broadband services in our community. I reached out to Director John Collins to find out exactly what we had done. LCS provided an additional 3 grade levels worth of devices during the pandemic, so students would have something at home. That's in addition to the 6th through 12th that we already provided. That was around 2,000 devices. In the 2021-22 school year, we started with devices for all students in grades through 2 through 12. We partnered with T-Mobile and Project 10 Million to provide hotspots to families. Of the 750 hotspots, approximately 500 have been provided to family. We partnered with area churches, community centers, and groups to provide internet access at locations around the city. We have installed additional wireless access to provide coverage in our school parking lots, so families can drive up to internet
access, but they have to be able to get there, and they have to have the ability to stay in that parking lot safely. We distributed 350 devices to instructional assistants and office staff who have the ability to work, who could give them the ability to work remotely. The other thing that we did last year was to establish the Lynchburg City Virtual Academy. We currently have 229 students with 192 students on the waiting list. We are currently expanding invitations to students for second semester. Current numbers will be going up, but will we have the space for those students? And right now we do not. We've also started a WISH project, which is wireless service at home. And we're funding that with a $3.2 million investment from CARES money. We are doing it in 4 phases. Phase 1 is downtown. We will provide wireless service to 1,600 students. Phase 2, downtown, Midtown and College Park to 1,800 students. Phase 3, West Lynchburg and Northwest Lynchburg, 1,000 students. Boonesboro and Rivermont. Phase 4, 1,100. Total of 5,500 students that we will be providing wireless service in their homes. This comes with an additional price tag. We have to be able to continue to offer this. We don't have the money in our system to be able to maintain it at this point. We also recognize that we need the supplies to make this work. A lot of these supplies are sitting on barges in our harbors, and we cannot get them unloaded into the places and to the individuals that can make this happen in our communities. And this is something that you can help us with. You can find a way to activate the National Guard, or our Army and Navies know how to unload barges and get them to locations. Help us get the supplies to the communities. The third thing, excuse me, the third area that I want to talk about is developing programs to help our commitment to equity and inclusiveness in our communities. November is National Family Engagement Month. Family engagement in the schools is a vital part of student success. Research has shown that the engagement between schools and families improves attendance, test scores, behavior, social skills, and a host of other positive feedbacks. We highlight different areas and give ideas on how to best engage our family and our community. We partner with Lynchburg City Police to try to engage our family and to provide a safe community. We have seen that the community spills over into our schools. What's happening in the communities happens in our schools. We have a strong support system in our SRO program, and we need to continue that to help us engage our families, not only in our schools, but in our cities. Why do we feel that this is so important? In order to help all our students be successful, we feel that we have to recognize, celebrate, and support all members of our school community. We and our colleagues across the country are doing this as aggressively as we can. We need your help to lead by example in your actions and your deeds. We need you to be a part of the village to help pull our students and families through this pandemic. And the ones that we were experiencing prior to COVID-19, we were experiencing a pandemic of poverty. We were a community in need, and we still are. We have a very strong city council support to helping our community move forward. We are, as a school system and city, are not sitting back, and all of the challenges that come with poverty define us. We have our partners attacking hunger, like Parkview Mission and Food for Thought, along with our nutrition program. Deliver meals on our buses and vans to each child in our community, not just those enrolled in Lynchburg City schools. We have wellness checks. We offer dental, vision, and hearing screenings, and are offering COVID screenings and testing as well. We reach out to our families with community conversations. Our next one at St. John's Episcopal Church is on October 24th. please feel free to reach out and join us in this. Our families and our students have watched the Capitol riots, demonstrations that were powerful in the spread of hatred and negativity. We have also watched the power of positive interaction that were peaceful celebrations. And that is what we need for you as our leaders in the city, in the state, and in our nation to continue to help us do. Be positive about what we have to accomplish.
Dr. Brennan?
Myself. Good morning. This is Bob Brennan, and I just wanted to thank Susan for her enthusiasm and for many years of dedication in Lynchburg City Schools. I am the baby boomer on the committee, so please put up with my poor IT talents. As you read my introduction, I will give you a little background, which is that in August of 2019, Governor Ralph Northam announced the formation of the African American History Education Commission, of which our esteemed Lynchburg City School Superintendent, Dr. Fiscal, was an active participant. The commission was charged with examining the teaching of African American history in Virginia public schools and to make recommendations for improving and enhancing the teaching and learning experience. The governor also directed the Virginia Department of Education to work with a committee of history and social science public school educators, college professors to develop a new African American history course for high school students. And Kimberly, I can have my next slide. The 58-page document was released in April of this year and is an extensive description of the curriculum for this new high school elective. Next slide, Kim. Briefly, first I want to point out that this is an elective. It's not a required course. It surveys African American history from pre-colonial Africa through today. It introduces students to key concepts in African American history from early beginnings in Africa through the trade of enslaved Africans, the agency and resilience of African Americans during the Civil War, emancipation, and reconstruction to the modern civil rights era. The joy, celebrations, and collaborations in the art, history, and culture of the past and modern Black America. Next slide, Susan. This course, like many other courses, are all courses that we do in Lynchburg City Schools and public schools throughout the state, is based on a practice called culturally responsive teaching. And this is based on the fact that it is student-centered. It identifies and nurtures students' cultural strengths to promote student achievement. It affirms cultural and individual identity. It utilizes students' culture as a vehicle for learning, and it establishes high expectations for all students and provides support to ensure success. Why do we need these programs? This data gives us an idea of why we need this. On the left is a pie graph that shows us the demographics of our city, which is obviously majority white, about 62%, about 28% African American. Our school system over the years has changed significantly in our demographics, where we are about 50% African American, we are about 31% white, and we are 9.6% multiracial and 7.1% Hispanic. We have many ethnicities, we have many cultures in our city that we want to celebrate, and this is one way that we can do that. We've talked about culturally responsive teaching. I just want to say that this is a guide that we use in all our courses, and it directs us to our mission, which is to take every child by name and by need to graduation. Thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning, and I will pass on the baton to my colleague.
Good morning, I'm Randall Trost, and if Dr. Brennan is the baby boomer, I'm the newbie on the school board. In any event, with that, I get the opportunity to ask for or to approach the teacher retention and recruitment issues. And that answer is easy. At least it looks easy. Throw more money at the situation. So just a few statistics to get you going. With respect to LCS and our board, we have three primary objectives. Number one is to raise teacher salaries to the national average. Right now, our salaries are far below the national average. And in fact, if you look at those numbers, and we'll go to the next slide, we'll do that in just a moment. Lynchburg is actually far below what we would see as the average from Virginia. Next is going to come up with innovative ideas to increase teacher net income. And then finally, we want to continue to incentivize teachers to work in urban school districts. Slide. So let's look at Virginia teachers' average salaries. Average salary in Virginia, just under $54,000. Now, this is what's interesting. The teachers make an average of 10.4% less than the Virginia wage average. Now, of course, we get some skewing because of the increased wages in Northern Virginia, but even if you pull out some of those outliers, still teachers are making significantly less than the average wage in Virginia. In addition to that, U.S. teachers as a whole across the nation make less than 60 cents for every dollar paid to people of the same education. We'll go back in the slide. Same education level and other professions. So what we have here is we have teachers who are educated professionals getting paid far below what their other types of colleagues with similar education levels across our nation. Most importantly, and I think very significantly, is statewide teacher salaries have dropped 9.14% since 2010. And that's adjusted for inflation. But that is just eye-opening to think that across our state, their wage adjusted or inflation adjusted salaries have dropped since 2010. Thanks, slide. Another look at that data is Virginia is one of the worst paying states for teachers across our nation. We're only bested or worsted, if you will, by Washington, D.C. With respect to our average wage. Unfortunately, it's something that has to be attributed to, and it's something that we have to come and ask for money. And those of you guys that know me, many of you guys listening in do know me. Number one, I'm cheap. I don't like to spend money unless I'm getting a good value, and I love to invest. And I see paying the teachers additional income, boots on the ground people that are actually making a direct impact to our students is a form of investing. And they're investing in the future of the state. We're investing in the future of their children. And if we don't invest now, we're going to pay more later. And I think that's what we're headed. Next slide. So in summary, what I want to talk about is how are we going to achieve these types of increases in salaries? Number one, I think we're looking at efficiencies in our school system. Right now we have a facility study going on. Hopefully we'll see some good results from that where we can find some additional efficiencies. In addition, locally here we have a task force I think is important that we continue to support and let them do their work. I know there's been on delay because of the pandemic. Let them do their work. Let's not only just ask for more money, but let's see how we can better utilize the money we have. And again, I'm a big proponent of giving more money to the boots on the ground people that are actually talking to our students, teaching our students, and dealing with our students. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Atul Gupta. And before I move any forward, I see on screen Senator Peake, Senator Newman, Vice Mayor Wright, and Councilman Faroldi. If I'm missing anybody, I apologize, and I'd like to say thank you to Ms. Sarah for joining us too. She's a warrior behind the scenes. But I'm going to say, and we all know Senator Newman is on the Senate Finance Committee, so he is the key player for all of us. What I'm going to, my part is on state funding. State funding, the Lynchburg City School, like VAS, has been asking, and I'm sorry I missed Delegate Wendell Walker. So we are asking to remove the cap for this for SOQ positions. They have been there for last 10 years, but this is the time to take them up and move that funding revenues to for other educational purposes we need, because as you know, in Commonwealth, we need an increase in teacher salaries, and this will allow us to retain and bring in quality educational teachers. We need quality teachers, and quality teachers need high salaries. And that has been the thing which is hurting Virginia. Virginia is number one in doing business. So why can't Virginia be number one in providing public education services to our students? So that's the message we should take to the General Assembly this year, is that we want to be number one in education now. And that won't happen till we do these minor things like taking the cap off from the support staff and the other things my colleagues are talking about. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Mike Nellis. I'm going to elaborate a little more on funding formula. We have three main topics. Dr. Gupta's already discussed the funding cap, or the cap on support staff. Two things are particularly important for Lynchburg that affects us due to our local economic situation is the funding calculation that uses the local composite index. And then the other is the, could you go back? Thank you. The Virginia Association of School Superintendents requests that due to the COVID impacts and significant changes in student enrollment, that we be held harmless for the next couple of years for re-benchmarking. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So Lynchburg has a high fiscal stress index, and this is I'm going to discuss these from 2019. The overall stress index for Lynchburg is number 13. There's 133 localities in the state, so we're pretty high in that respect. And the map shows all the different localities. And for your convenience, I pointed out where Lynchburg is, although I'm sure you all know that. And the fiscal stress index really is a way to kind of rank revenue generating capacity, revenue collection, and median household income. Lynchburg ranks and is number 14, and this really should be revenue capacity per capita, and that's the. So we're generating a lot of revenue per capita is really what this is, more so than a lot of other localities on a proportional basis. And that shows up in that we're number 8 in revenue generation effort. So that goes to taxing and funding and fees and all of that. But we are overall in the state, we're number 88 in median household income. So I think the city is doing being aggressive in terms of collecting revenue and supporting the needs for services and support for the citizens of Lynchburg, but the funding formula for education doesn't take into account really the situation where we're at. Thank you. Next slide. So we're support an increase in state funding to really emphasize differential funding for individual schools. As mentioned before, we're over 50% economically disadvantaged. That exceeds the state average. This population of Lynchburg is, majority white, but the public schools have a high proportion of economically disadvantaged students, and the reality is there are a lot of challenges that come with that. Slide. So the local composite index really is a reflection, how the state formula to determine what proportion of the locality should be to fund the total for total funding for the schools. And it's a weighted ranking of real estate property values, adjusted gross income, and taxable retail sales. And then, even though Lynchburg has a high stress index and are doing a good job collecting revenue on a per capita basis, then that gets adjusted. So if we do a good job, we end up actually having to pay more for local education than some other localities. It also really doesn't reflect what the needs and demands are for services in the schools. And you've heard from our previous presenters the need for actual more school counselors, psychologists, and social service providers. And that has really been come to the forefront with the lockdown with COVID. And there are a lot of the reality is in economically disadvantaged areas, there's a lot of stress on the students. Schools tend to be the first ones that see these, see the behaviors, can get services directed to students and families. But we had a year and a half where students were on their own, and a lot of things did not get caught. And just the stress with COVID in general, as you heard with Dr. Carter about the need for increased mental health services and emergency services. That's in our schools now. And it's a challenge. Next slide. That's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Nilles. I would like to say thank you as well to Senator Newman and Senator Peake and Delegate Walker through Councilman Feraldi. And I would like to thank Vice Mayor Wright and Councilman Feraldi and John Hughes and others for listening to us today. I want to mention briefly local control. And local control supports just about everything that we do. Lynchburg City Schools supports the Virginia School Boards Association's opposition to any attempts to divest local school boards of their constitutional authority to supervise schools. LCS supports the Virginia School Boards Association opposition to any efforts that interfere with the day-to-day activities of school boards in performing their constitutional responsibilities. Local school boards understand the needs of their communities and are best equipped to make decisions that impact the school division. Virginia is home to a diverse set of localities, and issues differ across the Commonwealth. Local control allows school boards the ability to craft policies designed to tackle issues in a manner that best fits community needs. Therefore, the Lynchburg City School Board, and I hope you can appreciate the robust, well-rounded depth of this board, champions local control as we have been under an increased level of scrutiny and pressure involving several issues as we've made difficult decisions on behalf of students. Our decisions have not always been popular and almost always guarantee disagreements in some portions of the community. As appointed school board members, we believe we are the closest to the community and are best suited to make the decisions regarding public education in Lynchburg. I now would like to turn the floor over to our government relations specialist from Virginia School Boards Association, J.T. Kessler.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman, and thank you for everybody who is here, Senator Peake and representatives from your other legislative or your legislative delegation. As Dr. Coleman stated, local control is a very key legislative position and priority of the Virginia School Boards Association. And in 2021, we are celebrating our 115th year of advocacy and leadership and support for the 133 school divisions here in the Commonwealth. We were founded and continue to support the constitutional authority of local boards to manage and control the public schools in this state. And we will continue to oppose any efforts that would divest the local school board's authority, a constitutional authority, to supervise schools, and any efforts that interfere with the day-to-day activities of school boards in performing these constitutional responsibilities. VSBA strongly believes local school boards know what is best for their communities. And because of the diverse nature of our Commonwealth, what may work in Northern Virginia may not work in Lynchburg or in Lee County, and what may work in Tazewell County may not work in Northern Virginia. So local school board members are best to answer these problems and that locally, and we just will continue to support that. We thank our legislators that represent Lynchburg for the work that you do and for your service to the public. Thank you, Dr. Coleman.
Thank you, JT. We would like each of you to know that VSBA is such a rich contributor to what we do here in Lynchburg and across the Commonwealth. And there was a letter that was disseminated by VSBA that indicated a disapproval of the correspondence that was sent out from NSBA relating to parents as domestic terrorists. VSBA does not support that notion, and certainly we do not as a local school board. We appreciate your ongoing support of local control for our Lynchburg City School Board and school boards across Virginia.
Family engagement and family involvement. This information is from Dr. Karen Mack, who is one of the founders and really laid the template for in family engagement, and also for our own Mrs. Ethel Reese, so LCS's family and engagement, family and community engagement director. Generally, when you think of family engagement, the first thing you think of if you get a call from your child's teacher or from the school, you probably turn around and say, so what did you do? Or you will say, what's going on, or is there a quarantine? But what family engagement is any way that a child or caregiver child's caregiver supports learning and healthy development. And you said, so what does that look like? Families can, or parents can engage by being encouragers. And this is one of the most effective ways to engage parents, to be supporters of their children, monitors of their children's time and behavior, advocates. And a lot of times we hear advocates, we're saying, oh no, we don't want advocates, but we do want parents to be advocates because they really will keep us accountable for education and for the academic progress of their students, collaborators and partners. And the main ingredients or the essential ingredients to family engagement is, one, is that every event that the school holds should be linked to learning. Every event should be linked to learning. So as parents should come to an event and they should leave learning and being more educated from being there. Also, it's about building relationships with parents, with the community, and parents building, and that will also enhance parents building relationships with parents and staff building relationships with parents and with the community. And it also takes education on both sides. It's a reciprocal thing where the families have to learn, and also the educators or the employees, LCS, have to learn too. And one of the key things is we have to refrain from blaming parents. Every time we say, oh, they're not engaged, they don't do this, they don't understand this. But we need to really stay away from that. And we also, Dr. Karen Mapp has also learned that from doing research, she also has at least 18 or 19 other people doing research, and they found that some parents are actively disengaging. And the reason being is because when they do show up at school, sometimes they're not treated the best. Maybe they don't look the way we want them to look, or they're not dressed the way we want them to dress. And sometimes if you are, you still may be greeted with, what do you want? Or what can I do? What can I do? The other thing is we need to really look at having an asset mindset, which means that we have to value parents as one of our most valuable capitals, or human capital, that who knows that child better than anyone but the parents. So really to work with the parents, to work with the students. And also the interactive component, that parents really want education, they want to learn. So like, again, anytime there's an event, they should be able to actively participate with hands-on experience so they can go back and also share with their students. Oftentimes when you come to a school event, you go away with a lot of different rules and paperwork, but little or no interactive behavior or ability to participate. And Dr. Mapp uses these 3 types of schools. And it's interesting to see where your child's school, where we are. For the Fortress School, these are the schools generally that they want you to come when they want you to come and show up when they want you to show up. And if not, they really aren't interested. It's really little engagement efforts being made. And also for engagement, you have to really train your staff, from the custodians to the attendance clerks to your teachers, about the importance, the mission of your school, to really be a good brand, as with the Chick-fil-A's or the Disney. So everyone will know what is your mission and vision, and how do we want our students to achieve. And again, the Fortress schools, a lot of times, she was saying that after you go through 20 doors and finally get to the main door, then you're greeted not in the most positive manner. So, and then there's little or no PTOs or interactions with the parents. The Open Doors School is a more proficient school where you may have 1 or 2 programs, and there may be some information that's assimilated. But the partnership schools, these are the ones where, if you're looking at any major events or big items that you're looking at, redistricting or change in schedules, that you're really going to involve the parents at the forefront, not do the change and then say, well, let's get the information from the parents, but to really make parents a partner in the school system. And you're really looking at professional developments for teachers. And we're talking about teacher retention. And that's one of the things that will help with teacher retention, is teachers that know that they have family members, that if they can call, that they will get help, then that makes a world of difference. And also, there was one illustration where a child behaved in one teacher's class, and when they went to other teachers, they misbehaved, and they looked and explored. And the fact is, the teacher where the child behaved, she had up-to-date, active telephones and email address for the parents. And she knew she could reach out and call. And she just didn't wait till there was a disciplinary problem, but she called and reached out all the time for the positive information to let the parent know that this child is doing well. So when the parent got a call, they knew that it didn't necessarily mean there was a disciplinary problem, but she was checking on the child, see how she can help and aid the child. And the barriers to why isn't this going on more often is sometimes it's the time of events, the place. Again, just the history of how some parents have been treated, policy. So if we really see where policies and inhibiting partnerships with parents, we really need to look at that. And we did take a look when we looked at our volunteer policy regarding that issue. And also it's the mindset also that we're about learning, but learning can really be enhanced if we really work with and advocate and assist with the engagement of our parents.
And now we will have our final student presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eugene Kim. I'm a senior at Heritage High School and Central Virginia Governor School. And I would just like to say it's a huge honor to be here today and be able to speak to you all. You can move on to the next slide. Thank you. This is just an overview of the Heritage High School day-to-day schedule. So we are now on a block schedule with 4 periods in one day in 90-minute blocks. And this is in order to reduce the amount of traffic in the hallways and to increase instructional time in the classrooms. Now, as Jaden mentioned, my role is to sort of be an outlet for students. And in order to do this, I sent out a Google form to the entire student body of Heritage, and students could anonymously respond to a series of free response questions with their thoughts. And one of these questions was, how has this school year been so far for you? And there was a wide range of answers for all of these questions. So I would just like to note that it's not an accurate sample since the answers were very varied. So for this question, I had a lot of answers, and some students said it's been good. They liked the block schedules, the A days and the B days. Some students said it was pretty boring and uneventful. Some students said it was stressful, actually. Many students said that. And other students had a more positive outlook on this, and they said that we're getting through it and they liked being at school in person as compared to virtually like last year. Another question they could respond to was, what things do you want to change for this school year? And some students were happy with everything. They didn't want to change anything. And there were a lot of complaints about the schedule itself. For example, having to be at school by 7:25. There was also complaints about the lunch schedule and the lunch system. And they really just wanted more activities in school, which I totally understand. And some students didn't really like the COVID regulations, which I'll go more in depth in the next slide. And our last question, how do you feel about the current COVID-19 restrictions? Many students said that the masks could be uncomfortable and they did not like them. And other students did say that they think it is really important to use our masks in the hallways. And then some students said that they wanted higher restrictions. So once again, there was a wide range of answers. Now, Heritage has a lot of amazing clubs and activities, but I wanted to highlight the Heritage High School Environmental Club because they recently had a volunteer opportunity with the EC Glass Club. And I just wanted to show that the two rival schools could work together and make a difference in our community. And to finish off, we had our Spirit Week in the week of October 18th through the 22nd. And we had themed days. For example, Monday was Sweats and Crazy Socks, and Thursdays was Halloween rehearsal day. And Friday was our Pink Out with our homecoming game that evening with our football team, which has been having a great season so far. In the homecoming game, they claimed victory against JS 61-8. And that is it for me. Thank you so much.
And we want to thank everybody for their time and attention for coming today. That is the end of our presentations. And now we open up the floor for questions and comments.
So good morning. This is Steve Newman. Thank you for the opportunity to come and join you today. A couple of things. One, I really appreciate hearing from your students. That was very kind. Good to see you, Dr. Coleman, and the rest of the team. We really are grateful for our teachers. As you know, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't have an opportunity to have communication during the presentation. I think I've been doing this about 30 years, and have had a lot of these, right? A lot of them, and have dealt with Campbell and Bedford and Botetourt and Amherst and Lynchburg and never done it this way. I think communication back and forth is really, really critical. Very disappointed that we missed that opportunity this time. I think it's an opportunity maybe for improvement next time, because there's a lot here, right? There's a lot here. And so much, I think, was missed in the 1 hour that we could have talked about. I mean, we could have spent a good bit of time just going back and forth instead of that on things like the local composite index. Boy, I tell you what, if we open up that local composite index with Northern Virginia and others with so many more populations, there is an untold amount of damage that could be done to Lynchburg City Schools and also others out there. We could have, I think, talked a good bit more about some of the broadband money. As you know, there is over $700 million going in. And on teacher salaries, boy, we've had a historic couple of years. I think we missed that opportunity to talk a little bit about that, because there's never been a time in Virginia's history ever where we've made more progress toward doing more for our teachers on teacher salary, 5%, and then another 2%, 3%. I mean, we are making great progress. It doesn't mean there's still not room, but boy, a dialogue, right, is the way we've normally done this for 30 years. We missed that opportunity today. The other thing I think we missed is and because we're friends, we're community people involved with each other, just very disappointed we didn't talk about math, history, science, and English. And we talked a lot about the social things and that type of thing. And those may have an important place, but boy, you know, when you look at, and I used to be chairman of the education committee, and I'm still the ranking member, you look at the scores and we're in trouble. We're in trouble on math, history, science, and English. We're in trouble. We could have had a rich conversation today about also about academics. That would have been maybe a topic that we could have, maybe with more time or maybe collaboration, talked about, because we've got to do something different in math. And math is a serious problem. I know the Superintendent Lane and I have spent a lot of time on that. Could have had more of a discussion, I think, on that. History, there are some changes in history. Unfortunately, we're losing the metric on history. We've had that metric in place for about 30 years, and we're going to lose some of that metric. On science, you know that the federal government is still pushing down for metricable data on science and on English. So I am grateful that we've spent this time. I think that there is a more historical, productive way that some of us can kind of get together and talk about things collaboratively instead of maybe this way. And it's not, you know, I love the city, I love you guys, but I just think that, I think we could have talked a lot more about some things that were of great importance. So anyway, I'm grateful for your time. Sorry, it was a couple minutes late. Sarah's kind of brought me up to speed, but you have some people that I think are ranking members in the education committees. I know I've been the chairman of the subcommittee on K-12 for a long time, and then the last couple of years we've been working with the Democrat leader on that. But we've also been working greatly on education local control. That's been a big deal in all of our budgets, the House and the Senate budget, as we've gone through and given you more local control. Love to talk to you at the right time about the possibilities that are now in the state budget on local control, local calendar control. There's so much more, but I think it takes a dialogue to kind of do that. And don't take this really as a strong criticism. It's just, I think that another way lets us talk to each other like we have for the last 30 years. So if you don't mind me saying that, I know it's early in the morning and we want to be all smiles, but I think there is a better way for us to communicate that goes back to the more traditional ways. And also, I just think we've got to talk about math, history, science, and English, because those items really matter. The numbers are unbelievably bad. I know we've had COVID, but we've got to pull through those numbers, and how are we going to do that? And maybe the social things are important also, but they maybe are something that is a long-term great fix, but we've got to fix these items soon. So forgive my long discussion here, but that's just some of my thoughts.
Senator Newman, thank you so much for those comments, and we will take them into consideration. And it's difficult to know how best to use the time to get across the message that we want. And so I apologize for not opening up for discussion and dialogue. Let's consider this the beginning of the conversation and keep it going, because we're not going to solve these problems in 90 minutes, so we can keep going forward on this conversation. And I really appreciate your time, comments, suggestions, and we are focused on the subject areas. We have been monitoring student levels and where they are, and we're working hard to bring students back to class level where they need to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. Just one last point. If you guys do want to have some discussion, maybe even before we go to session, on what we're going to do about math, history, science, and English, that would be really quite helpful in how we kind of attack those issues, because ultimately those are the reasons why we go to school. And I know that's something that parents care deeply about as well. So if you have another time you want to talk about academics, I'd love to do that.
Sure. Did you want to respond, Dr. Edwards?
Senator Newman, I appreciate that invitation, because that is the area that I spend most of my time in doing. Can you also hear me? Okay. That is the area that I spend most of my time, and my staff, and you will see many directors and principals, we're all nodding with you, because that is the business that we're in. We would love to get out of contact tracing and many of the other distractions and get to the business of teaching kids to read. There's a wonderful video on our website about foundations, and it just really showcases what we are about in terms of our commitment to get our babies back. And you are absolutely right. It is the reason why we go to school. It is our mission, is education first. And I think we've been vaulted into this health crisis and distracted. So we would love to invite you, bring you to our schools, and show you some of the wonderful things that we are doing to address all of the learning concerns that we have, particularly in the area of literacy and math and science and social studies, as you stated. And when you really think through, I mean, this one little statistic is mind-boggling when you think of our kindergartners who left us in March of 2020. They are now in second grade, and they had 2 days a week of first grade, fundamental first grade. So when I tell you my elementary staff is working hard to fill in the gaps, there is so much more. We could talk your ear off and take you on tours, and we certainly welcome you and our other delegates to come see, come help us, and join us in this mission to really educate our kids. So I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
And yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, Dr. Coleman.
I just wanted to echo what the superintendent said, and thank you, Dr. Sinha, for putting this together so well today. But Senator, we want to thank you, Senator Newman, for taking time to be with us today. That in my mind is what speaks volumes. And of course, we're going to champion more opportunities to get with you and Senator Peake and Delegate Walker and everyone else. But first of all, just thank you for taking the time to be with us today. It's so important.
Dr. Coleman, thank you very much. And Doc, you know I love you. I love your family and think the world of you. So anytime I can spend a little time with you, you know I'm probably going to do that. So good to see you.
Anyone else care to chime in or ask questions, comment?
I will join in now following Senator Newman. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for putting this together. I would just say, I really prefer to meet in person. I think we do a much better job when we're all in the same room. And I guess it was 2 years ago where we last did that. So I really, I think we could have been in person this year. I don't see any reason why not. Everything else is in person. So I hope our next meeting will all be together. It was interesting in listening to what's going on. And I just, it's inescapable. The fact that we did not have our kids in classroom in person has been horribly detrimental to their educational process. And that's just a fact. And it's going to take a lot of work to make up for that lack of time in the classroom. And I'm glad that we're all back in person full day every day. And I had one question. You know, I know we've got the variant going on, and have we lost any Lynchburg City students to COVID during this pandemic?
Not to my knowledge, sir, and I
That-
hope that
that is-
we do not.
I do too. That is great. Do we know if we've had any serious? Has anyone been hospitalized? Any students that we know of?
I'm not aware of students. I know I have Director Brown on. I do know that we have had some staff that were hospitalized due to COVID.
Have we lost any? And have we lost any staff? That would be. Has any
Yes.
staff?
Yes.
A couple staff died.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
How many of those?
To our knowledge, I know at least one. But we've had some that had just retired. And we've lost a couple of those as well.
That is unfortunate, most unfortunate. I mean, I'm glad our students have not suffered too poorly. And we have got to get back in person. I don't know if we're going to extend days, go into the summer, or whatever we're going to have to do to get our students who missed really a year and a half, 2 years back up to speed. I will tell you, and I know we talked about the composite index. No one knows that issue better than Senator Newman does, who has been involved with it. And I've heard Senator Newman over the years. I've heard everyone, going back to Lacey Putney, anyone who has folks from Roanoke who represents anywhere west of Richmond, has always been very concerned, every legislator, Republican, Democrat, about changing the composite index, because the fear is that we will not fare well. When it was put in, Western Virginia, Southwest Virginia had a much bigger say in how the General Assembly operated. And so if we change it, we need to be, you better watch out. So I trust Senator Newman on that. He knows. And then some of the other issues, it so much is based on behavior and home life. When you look at counselors, and I forget, Dr. Morrison was listed the number of people that she thought we needed to put in school to deal with really home issues. And I just don't see it coming from the state level, the national level. And I don't know what we can do at the local level to address why so many of our students have problems at home. And I think if you look, it is always a high indicator of single parent homes. If you look at the statistics nationwide of what happens down the road, and we seem to do absolutely nothing ever from a statewide level or a federal level to address that issue. And it's, as a parent of 5, it's very difficult to raise children. It's very difficult to educate children, and it's a lot of work, and it's hard, and it's also hard to discipline children. And if you have them coming to school not behaving, not wanting to learn, and you can't discipline them, you can't remove them from the classroom, it disrupts every other child. And so I hear all these problems about counselors for this and that. And what do we do with children who disrupt classrooms, whose parents are not interested in them learning? There has to be some kind of a method to reach out and get parents on the hook and get them invested in their kids' education. And when you see schools where parents are invested in their education, you see changes. I assume all of y'all have seen that story in the last month or so about New Orleans, the high school down there, where they had so much violence. And they said, what? They got their parents involved. They got the dads. So the dads started going to school and eliminated the violence in the school. And the turnaround was tremendous because they got the dads involved. I would like to see something like that in our programs, in our school, to kind of be a leader. Look what they did in New Orleans. See if we can't do something like that to get parents, to get fathers involved, to set up a learning environment, a safe learning environment for our children. So that's some of the things that I have seen recently. Of course, we talked about the academics. And I would just note something that I heard was interesting the last week. One of the presenters earlier on said, if without the pre-K and the early childhood education, 70% of them end up going into some type of violent crime when we don't educate them properly at a very young age, which we have to get the parents involved to do that. And I heard a preacher talking. He was complaining. He said, they won't let me into the schools to talk with kids when they're 10, 11, and 12. Instead, I have to wait till they go to prison when they're 18 and 19. Then let me into the prisons to talk with them and work with them. But I can't go into schools to talk with them and work with them. Just kind of struck me that we wait till they go to prison. And I heard somebody say that churches provided broadband, but we need mentors from every walk of life coming in to work with our kids, and we shouldn't restrict anyone. Those are some things that I thought about. Thank you.
So Senator Peake, thank you
For your comment.
and your commitment to our schools, and we absolutely agree. This being Family Engagement Month, we are certainly activated in terms of working with our families. And as a public school system, we take every family. We take the ones who are in schools every single day, supporting, doing everything that they can. And we also take the ones who are not in schools if they can't be in schools. We can't control family circumstance, but what we can do is when the kids are with us 7 hours a day, do our best to educate them. And to your point of creative programming, we do have mentorships in place, and we agree we need everybody in schools to work with our kids. We have a thriving program at the beginning of our schools, Men to School. They come, celebrate, welcome all of our children to school. We have some of our students in older grades acting as role models for students in younger grades in absence of family members that they may not have to do those programs. And we do work with our community partners to meet kids where they are and provide services not only in the schools, but outside of the schools. We are proud of the work that we do with the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club and Jubilee. And we do have many church and other religious organizations that partner and work with us. As a matter of fact, our next community conversation on November 22nd is actually going to be held in a religious institution. We are getting out and going where the people are, because we recognize that for our children to succeed, it takes a community to help them. So we are committed to being that community, and we're also glad that you are also a partner in this work. So thank you.
And Senator Peake, if I could echo, not to repeat what Dr. Edwards just said, which was so powerful, but once again, we want to thank you because you're always responsive when we call on you to come to community events. We're familiar with the piece in New Orleans. I was just there recently, but right here in Lynchburg, we have some developing unique pieces like that that just need more and more attention and more support, and we thank you.
Dr. Sinha, if it's okay, I just wanted to express that Delegate Walker really did want to be here today, but he had to take a personal day to deal with some family matters, and it's an honor to represent him here, and then also wear 2 caps today. So I'll be sure to relay a lot of this data and this presentation and this discussion to him, so he's informed about what's happening here and the discussions associated. For my other hat, locally, I would express my commitment to being involved with this in any way I can, especially on the math, science, and English and so on. I went back and watched the discussion you all had about where some of the percentages of students are, grades 3 through 5, I think 6 through 8, and so on, with where they are below level. And if memory serves, I believe it was like 56% of students grade 3 through 5 were below level in math and 43% in reading. Grades 6 through 8, 65% of students were below level in math and 32% in reading. You know, those are certainly the core services, the core things, you know, students need to be educated on. And I would hope that we could really focus on those items as those are the pieces of education that are the building blocks for success. So I stand ready to be a part of that conversation. I know my boss does. And again, his regrets for not being here, and I'll do my best to get everything to him.
I appreciate that, and thank you very much. And I'm very familiar with busy schedules and how hard it is to attend everything. So thank you for coming and wearing your 2 hats, and we appreciate your support. Thank you. Anyone else care to chime in, have a comment, question?
I also would like to acknowledge that we have 2 very strong programs in Lynchburg that other school systems do not have, and that would be Beacon of Hope, who provides great service to students and families in support of their careers and post-high school opportunities. They do amazing things and did amazing things for us last year when we were struggling to get students acceptance into colleges. The second one is that we have an outstanding education foundation that work really hard to help our teachers with thousands of dollars in supplies and support and opportunities to do different activities with their students through scholarships. And they also provide a number of scholarships to our students, very nice scholarships. I think I received information from both principals that said our students, the class of 2021, received a total of over $12 million in scholarships and grants. And that's a significant amount of scholarships and opportunities for our students. And both those groups help us get our students to those places. And we owe them a great deal of thanks, and would like the opportunity for other school systems across the state to look at these programs and to see the benefits and if they can get them going in their communities as well.
I forgot one thing that I wanted to talk about. I know welding, electrician, our trades, how are, we didn't really discuss that, but, and I know Senator Newman, Delegate Walker, everywhere we've been going, our employers in the area are telling us we can't find people to do our jobs. HVAC, Southern Air. I know Banker Steel does some programs. How are our, what are we doing with our vocational education?
So that's a great question. And we have a thriving CTE program here at both of our high schools and our middle schools. So we are very invested in students in the trades, and we do recognize and have a partnership with the Business Alliance where we've learned of some of the shortages in the trades area. So if you've ever met any of our trades teachers, you know that they are committed to the work that they do with students, and students have been extremely successful. We work very hard to make sure that before they even leave Lynchburg City Schools, they are credentialed. They are passing those Skills USA tests. They are doing a lot of work, and that does not stop. The CVCC recently opened their regional academy, CTE Academy, They have a welding program. And one of the things that we look forward to doing as we craft our budget for the upcoming school year is to make room for our students to take part of those courses at that regional academy. So we are excited to partner with them, but also provide opportunities for students to do exactly what you just said, Senator Peak. Our mission is every child by name by need to graduation, and then we add and beyond. And beyond is whatever their next steps are. So whether that's going to a 2-year, a 4-year, or directly into the trades, we are very supportive of our kids.
And I know we have the programs, and it's our fault at the state level, and we talk about it frequently, and how we need to stress that to our students, what the opportunities are and how successful they can be by learning those trades and getting out, what the desperate need for welders, electricians, plumbers, auto repair. No one can fill those jobs, and we just have to stress it at an early age, and that's from the state down. So thank you for those programs.
Yes, in the southern region of the VSBA, they've been working on a regional alliance with the community colleges, which was interrupted by the COVID thing, but now it's getting more underway to leverage those resources that the state provides for the community college. Is sort of like a model of early college, but extended to trades. And having been part of Central Virginia Community College a few years back, I can say it's the best bargain in higher education. And I'm glad to see us building on that relationship with them as a school district. Very powerful use of resources.
Dr. Sinha, on a final note from me at least, I know that we appreciate safety and good relationships in our schools, and we just want to, may have already been stated, but just want to thank the support from our SROs, and we're thankful, I believe it's Mr. Smith that is here, took time out of his schedule to be with us in person if there were any questions relating to safety or what we're doing in that area. So thank you, sir, for being with us today.
Well, I believe we've gone over our time by quite a bit. So unless there are any more questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us on the school board. Again, let's think of this as the opening of a dialogue. We certainly welcome any opportunities to meet with you personally to further discuss these issues, get your feedback, and provide you with some insights into how things are going here. So thank you so much again for your time, for your suggestions, and we look forward to doing this in person next year. Thank you very much.